Welcome back. The Hanover Park community is reeling after the tragic death of 4-year-old Qadir Boer, who was killed in a suspected gang-related shooting. 2 teenagers have since been arrested and charged with the child's murder. For more, we are joined by Dr Llewellyn Macmaster, Cape Crime Crisis Coalition chairperson. Dr Macmaster, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. Certainly a very sad occasion once again, a very young child being caught in the crossfire of gang violence. What do you think are the root causes that we are unable to root out, that we still find ourselves 30 years into democracy where children are caught in such crossfires?
Thank you, Qadir, for having me. Yes, one is saddened because I was just thinking, if we cannot, have empathy, then it's a sad day that we've actually lost our own humanity, because violence has become so normalized. So we are saddened, but we at the same time also outraged again, because the killings are not stopping. Too many children, innocent children, are being caught in these crossfires. And as you say, the sad reality for us is that 31 years into democracy, people are not feeling safe. People are not experiencing what we agree with, the constitutional right to be safe and be protected. And I think part of it is, it's so complex, but part of it is that, so many people are still, trapped in the same poor conditions, poverty, overcrowding, the unemployment and stuff like this that just provide fertile ground for gangsterism and organized crime and so on. So as a Cape Crime Coalition, we, even today, we were part of community, civil society, listening to the minister and the police, SAPS, presenting a plan to combat organized crime and gangsterism and stuff. Because, as you know, the minister was here a couple of weeks ago. He promised to come back. And I think most of the organizations applauded him for coming back, because even in that sense, we have had so many promises, but never received, the feedback from the police and so on. So we are continuously working, networking, reaching out, playing our part to provide even the minister with from the Cape Crime Crisis Coalition side, a document where we also put proposals on the table that speak to the broad situation that we find ourselves in, of violence and gangsterism and stuff like that. Right.
And I want us in a moment to touch on the interventions from both national and provincial level when it comes to policing, particularly in those areas such as Hanover Park. But you spoke about young people being trapped in the same conditions of poverty, and this providing a fertile ground for such crimes to persist. And in this particular incident, it's 2 17-year-olds who have now been arrested for the murder of a 4-year-old child. What do you think are the immediate and long-term psychological as well as societal impacts of children who are exposed to gun violence from a very young age?
I think we are already, grappling with and battling with historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, so much so that many would refer to South Africa as a wounded nation. And so for me, when I look at it from, my field of study, pastoral practical theology, it's layers and layers of trauma that our communities are experiencing. And and this trauma is just carried over from generation to generation. So many of our children and our young people are already, traumatized. We see that as it plays out in things like bullying and stuff like that. And add to the fact that gangsters are recruiting younger and younger children into gangs. My sense is that a child or young person of 12, 13, 17 years old, they do not have the capacity to make that choices about life and death. But with a gun in their hand, the whole situation changed. They have this false sense of power and stuff like that. And then, of course, as I see with children witnessing these acts of violence on a daily basis, we are in real trouble. And it asks of the whole of society to come to the party, so to speak, and to say it's not just the responsibility of government. We have to play our part, but it's a huge, huge challenge.
It certainly is. And speaking of whose responsibility it is, I just want us to hone in, particularly when it comes to at provincial level. Do you feel that provincial government is doing enough to ensure that violence, especially in areas such as Hanover Park, is curbed? I mean, we've heard from the DA in the province repeatedly calling for the devolution of powers within SAPS so that provinces are able to tackle crime autonomously. Do you believe this is the solution?
I don't think that on its own is a solution. Today, in the plan, mention was made again of the agreement signed last year as an initiative of Minister Mchunu. And we were quite, happy to hear that, because part of our situation, I think, is that there's too much politics. There's too much politics between national and provincial and city. So I've listened to the Premier also. I've listened to the things that they propose. And every time I say to myself, it is not all that is needed. It is not just a police matter. It is not just, tracking shots. And it's, while we welcome things like more boots on the ground, law enforcement, leap officers, and so on, I'm not for one moment saying that does not help. It helps. But if the conditions still remain the same, if people are desperate, if organized crime present to them a way to survive for young people to earn money, we are not addressing the root causes. And again, we applaud the police every time they tell us they've confiscated firearms and ammunition. Good. But clearly, it's not enough. We are not, or they are not digging deep enough to stop the illegal firearms from landing in the hands of criminals and so on.
You spoke earlier on about taking responsibility as citizens. How much involvement is there in terms of community involvement in pairing up with law enforcement in tackling these issues together? I've come, especially over the last year or so, I've come to respect people on the ground, activists in communities like Hanover Park, people doing wonderful work, people, putting literally their bodies online, in terms of neighborhood watches and the CPFs and others.